Hello.
Offers many special services and programs for our commercial and industrial customers, including assistance.
Hello.
What do you think of Saudi Arabia uh, lowering the output? They double crossed the U.S. With oil.
Of
Well,
course they
no.
did. They're laughing at Biden.
They laughing at Biden, but you know what they should? He was such a jerk. If he would have left open the oil that comes from the North pipeline, we would have been with oil independent in the world.
Now he's asking. Now he's asking Venezuela for help.
Could you imagine that lowering of Venezuela? I mean, what a disaster! And this guy, Saudi Arabia, I thought he was supposed to be the friend of the U.S. What should happen? Let somebody try to invade Saudi Arabia and not help them. They'll just walk away with it. What an idiot! What an idiot!
We're on Sadik Aleph, Ahmed Aleph. So, we discussed that when there are two ksubas, because he had married two wives, one died while he was alive, one died when he was not alive, that if there's if when they add it all up, there's a dinner more than the value of the two, then they divide them. That extra dinner has to be in land value, not in metaltalin. The other mandomer said that to make this calculation, you can include metaltalin as well. Can you say that? But not. If there's only metaltalin, right? Assets that have no achrayas is by definition metaltalin. Ad sheisham nechasim sheisham achrayas. And Yasral shtei ksubas dinner. If you add them up and there's more than the value of the two ksubas by a dinner, so you see it's got to be karka, not metaltalin, according to everybody. The question is whether the karka has been sold to a third party. It's meshubid. Mar Sover, it's got to be bnei choyrin in. That to make the calculation with the extra dinner, evaluating whether it equals the two ksubas, it has to be land that hasn't been leaned or sold to somebody. But if there's a shibud on that land, you can't use it. However, that you could use the calculation even for land that was meshubed. Im yesh sham moiser dinner. It shouldn't say im yesh sham moiser. It should say kiven she yesh sham moiser dinner. Ella bepachos medinner kamifli. We're talking about where there isn't an extra dinner worth. Marsav a dinner in pachos medinner low. That if there's less than a dinner increased value when you add the assets, you don't divide it. Umar sarafilo pachos medinner. Even less than a dinner. I have a Reb Shimon dinner kamar. He said dinner. So you can't switch the shitas because Tanakama not the Masi is nami dinner kamar. Elach kihanach trelishnoi kamoy ve'epech. It's like the two previous shitas, but you have to switch it. That it's like the other b'moiser metaltalin, or it's not like what we said above and below a dinner. It's like we said before regarding karka and metaltalin. One of the wives died while he was alive. The other died after he died. They both can collect the ksuba. And when you collect the value, ksuba nasa moisel chaverta, you can add the value of the other ksuba along with the original ksuba. So I understand the chiddush is when one died in his lifetime, the other died after his death. V'lo ashmi inon. Then you wouldn't have had the chiddush of ksuba nasa moisel chaverta. Havamina i'ike moiser dinner. And the division would be whether there's an extra dinner or not. Ella, the Gemara said you could have taught something simpler. Teach that the other ksuba can be used as value. We would have known we would have understood that if there are two families waiting to collect, they both would have collected. The Gemara says, problematic case would be if he married 3 wives. 2 died while he was alive. And again, in those cases, there is no ksubas ben dichron to inherit. One died. One was alive when he died, so she inherited the ksuba. Then she died. The wife that died after Misa, Yoledes Nekevi. Maybe you'd describe a case where she didn't give birth to a male, but only gave birth to a female. The lav bas Yerushi, and a female does not inherit. But in a single case, one wife died while he was alive, the other died after his death. And the one who died after the husband died gave birth to a son. Maybe there would be fights. Like we said before, so Kamash that we're not worried about fights, and they divide it equally, and we don't worry about fights. Mishnah. The exact case we discussed. He married 2 wives. They died. They both died while he was alive. So there's no ksuba. There's no ksuba for the children to inherit. And then he died. And then there's Yorshim. But v'yisomim mevakshin ksuvas iman. The heirs who are the children of those mothers request to be paid first the ksuba of their mother. Let's first take our shares and then we'll divide the rest equally. The Ein Shem Elishtei Ksubas, and there isn't more assets than just the value of the 2 ksubas. The din is choking b'shava. They divide equally based on how many people there are. Hayesha moiser dinner. Let's say there was at least 1 dinner more than the value of the 2 ksubas together. So then you give each one, because remember, it could be that one wife's ksuba was higher than the other. Therefore, elu noising ksuba siman, the elu noising ksuba siman. Now, so this could come, one of these sets of yisomim could lose out if there's moiser dinner. Im omru yisomim anachnu malim al nichse avinu yofet dinner. We will accept a higher valuation of than what fair market value is if we sold the assets at the market. Because they want the value to be more than the ksubas. We don't listen to that suggestion. We go through the normal procedure of valuating assets, which is fair market value. And therefore, not only that, you have to value the assets as what's in the estate at the time of the death of the person. Let's say there's going to be assets coming in the future. For example, in another Yerusha, whatever. So, we're only koiveya, the value is at the time of the death of the husband, not that future things that are going to come in. Even if there's extra value by metaltalin, einan klum. That doesn't figure in this calculation. There has to be land value, dinner, more than the value of the 2 ksubas together. And the Gemara quotes a Baraisa, Torah Rabbanan. Lazu elav zuv lazu chameshmos. Like we said, the valuations of the 2 women's ksuba were different. One was worth 1,000, The other was worth 500. Im Yesha Moiser Dinner. So if you added them up and it was 1,501, then the guy's luck out. The one who was the children of the woman had 1,000. Elenoitling Subasiman, they get 1,000. Elenos and Subasiman, the other one gets 500, and they divide the other dinner. So in that respect, you can see why they might do all these conniptions to try to increase the value by a moiser dinner, because the imlav, if it's not above moiser dinner, yachloiku b'shaveh. They divided 750, not 1,500. So the Gemara says, Pshita, I mean, what are you telling me here? Merubin v'nismatu kvar zachu ben yorshim. Now, it's a davar pashut that if the assets were worth 1,501 and then they decreased in value, we don't care about that. They were zoicha in the original value as yorshim. Our question is muatim v'nisrabu mai. They were worth less and then increased in value. What's the din? Toshma. The nichse de Bar Tzartzur, the assets of Bar Tzartzur muatin were less than the value of the two ksubas v'nisrabu av, and they went up in price. The Osla Kamed Rav Amram, they went to Rav Amram, to Paskin, Armeluhu. Zilfai Sinu, go and try to make nice. We're saying that the people, one of the sets of the children stood to inherit 1,000, and the smaller ksuba was 500. So they suggested, listen, make a deal with them, and make them happy. Give them some of what your chelik is, but lo ashkechu. They didn't listen. If you don't make them happy, I'm going to beat you with like a stick that's not going to raise blood. He sent them in front of Rav Nachman. Just like if at the time of the death the assets were of the appropriate value, but they went down in price, we don't care. We assess the value as at the time of the death of the husband. It all is based on what the assets were valued at the time of Misa. So in this case, since there was no moister dinner, they would have to divide the assets equally. It wouldn't be that one would get 1,000, one would get 500, but they would get 750 each. Simin, Elef umea mitzvah b'ksuva Yaakov Zakev sadoisa b'dvar maskina. Hahu gavr davu maski be'alfa zuzi. Somebody owed $1,000. Havule trei aptene. He had two houses. Zvinu chada b'chamesh mea v'chamesh b'chamesh mea. He sold one house for 500 and the other house for 500. But as a balch of tarf l'chadim nayu, he had a creditor who he had owed money to, and that creditor came and took one of the houses away. And and he wanted to collect the other house. I guess the debt was 1,000. So Shokal Alpha Zuzi. Now there was a buyer of the house. A guy, he had sold it, and he had sold it to a third party. And the Balchav had come to that third party and took one of the houses away. Now the third party wanted to retain at least one of his houses, so he took 1,000 zuz v'ka'az l'gavei and went to the guy who had loaned the original guy the $1,000. I'm like, Yishav l'chal f'zuzi l'chai. If when you took possession of my original house, you act as if it was worth 1,000, so fine, you keep it. Ve'ilo shakel al fazuz v'istalik. I'll give you $1,000 on the side, and I get my 2 houses back. Because he can't give him more, can't give him 1,500, but he want this by, the question was, could he do that? L'chora he could. Sava Rabbi Bar Chama L'meimar, Hainu Masnisim. They wanted to compare it to our Mishnah. If we sort of don't go according to fair market value, but we view the current assets as a certain higher than what they really are worth, we said we don't listen to them. So here as well, we would say that the guy who was trying to get rid of this guy with even though the houses are valued at 500, he wants to make it 1,000. We don't let him do it. So the Gemara says, "Ramalei Rava midami." There's not comparison. Hasam islup seidli asmi. In our Mishnah, there's heirs, and otherwise there'd be a loss to the heirs. Because if the ones who have a smaller ksuba agree to the kids with the bigger ksuba, it's going to lose out to them. So there's a pseida. Hacham yislip pseida. There's no loss. He's getting back his $1,000 off the yard, off the shachkin. He loaned 1,000, he's getting 1,000 back. So why shouldn't we do it? Otherwise, it's a midas dome, right? If if you benefit and the other guy doesn't lose anything, that's midas dome if you don't go along with that. Now, if the one who's trying to get paid back agrees to hold on to one of the houses, v'tirfa bekama kasfina. So how much do we write as the document in Besdin for the guy to be able to collect the remainder of his money? He paid 500 for one of the houses. And remember, the guy he made out with $1,000 dinner profit because he got rid of his debt and he still has his houses. So Ravina Amar Ba'alfa. Well, you write a document that he's allowed to collect 1,000 because that was the value of the debt. Rav Avir Amar Chamish Meos. Because he only bought the house for 500. You write it for 500.
How do you log in?
Somebody owed 100 zuz. He had 2 small plots of land. He sold one for 50, the other for 50. Now he had the 100 to pay back, but also a prior creditor came and collected one of the pieces of land. And he wanted to collect the other as complete payment. Now, a guy had purchased the field from the original borrower. And again, in this case, he took 100 dinar and he went to the Balchov. If this field is worth 100, good. The original field you bought, and therefore you accept it as complete payment of your debt. V'ilo, and if you don't accept that, here's shakol me'azuzi v'istalik. I'll give you 100 and leave both pieces of land alone. And again, Sover Rav Yosef Lemeimar, Hainu Masnisim, that's our Mishnah, that im amru yisomim, right? If the yisomim want to increase the value of the assets, we don't listen to them. Abai midami. Again, Abai says there's no comparison. Hasam islub seidli yasmi. Hacham is previously. Here there's no loss. Mea yov, mea shakel. He loaned 100, he got 100 back. Tirfa become a kasvina. The document to take the star that allows him to take, how much do you write? Ravina Amar b'meya, Ravina b'chamshin, v'ilchaz b'chamshin. Same halacha that we said before. Hahu gavred avamaska b'meya zuzi. Person owed $100. Shach, if he died. Shava katina da'aradav v'shavi chamishin zuz. Here he left over a piece of land that was worth 50. Asabal Katarfle. The original lender came and took that as payment. He's still 50 short. Also, Yasmi Yavale Chamishin Zuzi. The Soimim rescued the land and gave him the 50 zuz that he paid. Excuse me, they gave him 50 zuz to take back that piece of land. But there's still a debt. Hoda Katarfla. He was paid 50, but he still owed 50. So he grabbed it again because it's worth 50. Asla Kameda Baya. So the Yisoimim complained, Amr Lehen, mitzvah al Yisoimim l'frochav avian. It's a mitzvah to pay back the debt of your father. So Hani Kamai mitzvah vida too. The original money that you gave was to pay back the debt. But the shibut doesn't go away, so he still had a lien on the land. And therefore, hashta kitarf bedin katarf. The fact that he took the land away from you, he did it bedin. However, lo amaran, the lo amar lehani chaim shinzuzi demeda arkatina. It's only when they didn't, that the Yisomi didn't say, this 50 zuz that I'm giving you is for the value of the field. If they did say this 50 is for the value of this piece of land, then the Balchav wouldn't have any claims anymore. He had a mother who was married, who has a ksuba. That means if the husband dies or divorces her, she collects a ksuba. So the son sold his mother's ksuba, b'toy v'sanah, that he might inherit the ksuba. Meaning, if his father should die, what happens? His mother gets a ksuba. And then if his mother dies, he inherits. So it's far-fetched, so he would sell it for a discount, but he could sell it. There's value there. And the guy who gave him money, he would collect the ksuba. V'amar lei, and the son said to the buyer, now, if my mother comes and hears about this and complains about it, I'm not going to make you whole. That means the buyer had to accept another risk, that if the mother heard about it and came along and complained about it, that the money that guy spent, he wouldn't be able to get back. Meanwhile, Shchiva ime v'lo irara. Meanwhile, the mother died, and she had not complained. But also, the guy who sold it, B'ksuba Sanah, he himself came in and made a complaint. It's strange because he's the one who sold it in the first place. But I guess he's standing in his mother's place now. No, he's standing now in the place of his mother. And maybe now he can complain. If he sold it, he cannot complain about the deal that he, in fact, originated. And let me see if the halach is like that. Right, the son cannot now, after the death of his mother, complain in the mother's. He's the one who started the whole deal by selling it. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Okay, we'll stop here. Tomorrow night's a small blot.
We consider the fact that if a man